And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting edition of Fable Fridays. Today, we're back and we're talking Fables Part 8 of my ongoing review. And that shot is horrible. All right. But you can sort of see it. Right there we go. So, welcome, everybody, to another installment. I missed talking about this last week due to some crazy hijinks that happened, but we're here stronger than ever, right? And we're getting ready to talk about Fables. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you're watching this at a later point in time, thank you so much for the likes and the comments and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, what did I think of Fables Part 8? I should tell every single one of you. Actually, let me do that right now while I'm live. I'm going to put up some spoilers because we're going to talk about the whole shebang that happens in this book because there's a lot of cool stuff, right? So if you do not want to be spoiled when it comes to Fables Volume 8 or Part 8, please stop watching this video. Read up on the series, and when you get to this point and you've read this book, come back and watch this video. No problems whatsoever. I completely understand people not wanting to get spoiled, especially on a beloved series like this, because, hey, I'm new to the series. I had only read parts of it, but here I am doing a complete video review on the series book by book. So, yeah, tonight we're talking Fables Deluxe Edition, Book 8. Last video, the last Fable Fridays, I talked about how they skipped some issues, specifically issues, everything that's in here, I should say, issues 60 to 63, as well as 65 to 69. And this is all just one big epic story called The Good Prince. And boy, I was not prepared to how awesome and wholesome this reading experience was. All right, so let me take the dust jacket off because we're not going to need that. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the book. Also, the cover is a little misleading, and I was worried, but regardless, it was an amazing read. Before I get into the story, I do want to mention the fact that it's the same art team, right? Yeah. Mark Buckingham, Bill Willingham, obviously, Steve Layola, and Andrew Pepoy, I want to say. But yeah, it's the same artistic team from the previous volumes, and I think Buckingham just hit his stride with this book. At first, it seemed like he was just finding his footing to what the story could be. And in this volume, we get that and so much more. This is easily the best looking volume in my honest opinion. I loved the art in this one compared to all the rest. There was something very magical about it, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So, Fables Book 8. There's a lot of quick info that happens to start off the series. At the beginning, we catch up with Fabletown, and we learn that we see a little brief scene with Baba Yaga as she's being interrogated, and she is not really cooperating, giving out a lot of information. Now that the Fables, they know about the adversary's identity, Baba Yaga instead uses the info that the Fables are talking about and asking her to snatch up some information herself and regarding the witching well and all that stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then we move on to Prince Charming and the main staff of Fabletown, including Frau Totenkinder. I hope I said that name right, as they hatch up a scheme to get Hansel to reveal, or not reveal, to sorry, to get them to get Hansel to go into panic mode is what I'm trying to get at. I'm confusing something from a previous volume, so I do apologize on that. Basically, Hansel has been made aware thanks to Bigby's assault on the previous volumes, uh, that Fabletown has the wooden soldier heads stored away. So obviously the adversary wants them back because that's a main uh, one of their main fighting forces. So they are trying to hatch out a scheme to get them back. And Prince Charming has the idea of introducing a new twist to the whole interrogation and business transaction, if you will. They propose, you want those heads back. How about you give us all the information on all the missing fables, their whereabouts, and contact information, basically, a sort of keeping up to date with what's happened and all the people that's missing for all the fables that are missing loved ones. And obviously, that's going to send them into a panic because they don't have that info. That's going to take forever. So you see Fabletown being smart in this war, this sort of Cold War that's quickly escalating to a full-fledged battle, which we are getting to volume by volume. So that aside, the main focus of the book is, of course, on probably my favorite character of the series, which is Flycatcher. And, you know, this was just a beautiful examination of his persona, his character, and the journey that he goes through. To have a character that faced such a heavy trauma from previous volumes when we had that reveal of his origin, being the Frog Prince, and unfortunately, the day of the invasion and the fighting, the when the Fables were exiled, to see the murder of his beloved wife and his kids, and it just sent him into this shock that he never recovered from. Right, that's where the Flycatcher persona was born, as he just started uh, living out like a bum and eventually being hired in Fabletown as the ever loving janitor, and sort of uh, putting a mental block on himself to forget his past and all that he suffered through. So the obviously the Fables, they catch on and they hire him as the janitor with multiple uh, code violations, and so as to keep him doing community labor basically, and not having him face all the terrible things that happened. But after the events in the main story, obviously, he does remember. If you guys go back to the Christmas issue where Santa Claus brought back the ghost of his deceased wife and sort of restored him to his former self, and he remembered, sadly, he remembers everything again. So, Flycatcher, or Ambrose, if you will, suddenly has this supernatural realization in his dreams, and he's taken to where the Forsworn Knight is hanging, who is now free from the tree. And we learned that, of course, it is the character of Lancelot from Camelot and the Knights of the Round Table and all that stuff. And to see Lancelot, such a once highly regarded figure in Fables, to see him sort of pass on the mantle, if you will. And now Ambrose is the new once and future king, as he's knighted and the owner of the armor, is really awesome. And it really expands the mythos of Fables as a series, and it really expands the series as a whole into different wild, awesome directions. Once that happens, Ambrose, he is a pure knight, and he has this realization after fighting depression and past trauma. This book reminds me that everybody can have a second chance, and we see that through the character of Flycatcher as he begins this path of self-healing and second chances. Now he is determined. He's on this quest to reclaim what was taken. So he's going to go into the witching well with Lancelot and sort of find all the fables that passed through there and died, and raise an army of the dead with the promise of leading them into resurrection, if you will, to lead them uh, into their previous lands, and specifically Ambrose's previous kingdom, which he now names as Haven. And that's such an epic moment. When they're on this journey, and these previous fables, they're told, if you come with me, you will not die, but you will still feel hunger. You will still feel pain and be tired and thirst. So if you're willing to take that journey with me, that you will be rewarded at the end, because we will reach our promised land, if you will. And it's interesting. It's a very obviously the biblical metaphors are wild in this book, and to have such an interesting character take all of these what were previously sort of miscellaneous characters on this epic pilgrimage, if you will, is really, it's really emotionally rewarding and exhausting at the same time. Here are a couple panels from what I was mentioning earlier when our boy is knighted, obviously. I do like that Ambrose got a clean cut and he's practically a new man. You see him right there with the armor. Let's see if this camera can focus right. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about the glare, guys. So once all of that, let's see if I can get some of the art here. And they're passing through the Ghostlands. Obviously, we get some familiar faces here with Bluebeard and Shere Khan. And now they're back. And obviously, that if these guys are back, previous bad guys, they're not going to play by the rules. And it's pretty interesting that you think, Flycatcher's being naive, but he's smarter than that. And he has an idea for what he wants with these guys, and sort of he's going to use them as bait for the adversary later on, right? So all of that happens, and you get the Fables, of course. They're watching through the magic mirror, and he sort of becomes this reality star for the citizens of Fabletown, right? Here's that epic pilgrimage. This is easily one of my favorite moments of this comic so far. I absolutely love this story. And again, it just reminded me of second chances and having that opportunity, right? To become something that you were meant to be is pretty epic, and in my opinion. So, give me a second here. Shoot. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I got a little notification here on my computer. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah. So part of the thing with them crossing over, I thought the cover of the book was a little bit misleading, but no, as they're crossing these lands for this sort of limbo, if you will, where you get weaker as you going through it, and Flycatcher being alive certainly wears him down, and to have the few remaining Fables that chose to stick by his side to carry him all the way is really impactful and beautiful and poetic in a way. So once they arrive in Haven, he goes to the task of rebuilding the kingdom, and he is now its king, and he sends Lancelot as his envoy, basically, to tell the adversary, like, hey, I'm here and I am going to wreck all your plans. Deal with it, son. And that's what happens. And we get one of the coolest things, that you can raise an army, combat the enemy threat, and not drop a single or not spill a single drop of blood. Pacifism and his soft-spoken ways just throw everybody in the adversary's camp with the emperor and all that stuff. They throw him for a loop, and Geppetto can't keep up, right? So I thought that was really cool and just a smart way to go about things and not necessarily resort to violence, which I'm somewhat of a pacifist. So I was really happy with the decision making in this book with the whole Haven segment. You know, here we have some more wonderful art. Yeah, obviously these two guys are going to be scheming. It's going to be pretty. It's going to be pretty wild. And I thought, oh boy, here we go again. But no, our boy Flatcatcher, like I mentioned, was smarter than that, and he realized pretty quickly that he could use them to gain the attention of the adversary. And I do like that. Yeah, sure. You can't really beat them by the numbers because obviously Haven's smaller, but the enchanted armor, the Excalibur sword, and all the getup that has been branded on for our main lead here on the story for Ambrose, sort of just buffs him up really in a very OP way, right? And yeah, this is actually one of my favorite splash pages from the book because it's a stark contrast from the rest of what's in the series because you have this espionage, Cold War esque battle between what we thought were the main leads, which, you know, there still are, but we see something really different. We see a different side of the story and a way to combat the oncoming threat without having to resort to fights and murder and all that stuff. So as the story progresses, you know, Ambrose, he realizes that his visions may come to an end, signifying that he's going to lose his life at the ending of this book. And it doesn't happen the way he thought. So he does get that second chance, which I thought was fantastic because I would have been really pissed off if the book ended, or at least this mini story ended with his death at the hands of the Empire and all that stuff. The final actual fight involves the, I believe it was the sacred grove, the sacred tree that Geppetto uses to get all the woodmen and, you know, use all that magical wood. He, in a really awesome moment, Ambrose knows that it's time, it's the finale. So he's willing to sacrifice it all for Haven and its citizens, which are now composed of defeated enemies who have been given a second chance. Like I said, this is the main theme of the story, of having that second chance, that opportunity to make something of yourself and to have another shot at a better life. So he's welcoming all the defeated bad guys because they're not going to go back. If they go back, they're going to face a death penalty for losing and coming back, right? So I thought that was great. And now that he's built this kingdom that can easily oppose and become a third party in this whole war between the adversary and Fabletown, he's in a position to be able to sacrifice himself and know that the kingdom can go on. Obviously, if the ghosts they're given an option, you can leave and go on to your final destination, whether that be heaven or hell or whatever it may be, or you can stay here within the boundaries of Haven and keep your physical self. Because once they left the witching well, they regain their formal bodies and stuff. As you can see here, Shere Khan right there is kind of hollow. So in one of his last moments, he surrenders himself to his fate, or what he thinks is his fate. But no, it just so happens that was the last remaining vision, I guess. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna lose your life as a result. And the armor, I got a little bit lost there with some of the abilities and all that stuff which I don't think got explained the best possible way. You just kind of accept it for what it is. Sometimes just these magical shenanigans happen, right? But the Sacred Grove's magic reacts to Ambrose's armor and turns all the wooden puppets that were sort of like this last battalion that were coming in to kill everybody. They turn back into the woods, into the trees that they once were, and all the soldiers go back to sleep. And what's beautiful about this moment is that for one split second, a boy flycatcher, King Ambrose himself, has a moment of weakness and doubt, and he has one more vision of himself, of what if he were to take up arms and use the Grove, similar to what Geppetto has been doing for evil purposes, and you see him sort of becoming this dark version of himself, this maniacal tyrant, leading a mass destruction across the land and the empire. But no, he is our knight in shining armor, right? He is the once and future king, alluding to him being the next King Arthur, basically. And he does the right thing and just abandons the thought and retains his moral compass and his wholesomeness. And that idea just, it's expelled from his mind, and he goes back to being his regular self. So I really thought that was interesting and really well done, and reminded me of the duality and the nature of this book, of having these famous fables sort of represent the good and the bad in all of us, and Ambrose taking the lead and fighting for peace. And that's a beautiful thing, and that's the thing that it's sorely needed in today's world as of this recording, whenever you're watching it. But I do suspect that later on, regardless of what happens now or in the future, humanity will still need people to champion the concept of peace and love and togetherness, and just that spirit is embodied in this, and of course Ambrose's action. So yeah, this was really awesome. This easily just freaking became one of my favorite things I've read in a while. Right there. Yeah, you can see there. I do love the conversations between Lancelot and Ambrose, because Lancelot, he finally has a shot at redemption himself for all the things that he did, of course, with the legend of Camelot and betraying Arthur and the knights and all that stuff. And he finally has the shot to go back and end his quest, I guess, of torture and move on to his next life. But he's got one last goal, and it, of course, serves to serve under Ambrose as his advisor and envoy. And to see him question, like, Ambrose, what are you doing? This isn't part of the plan. But he did have a plan, which was really interesting. Of course, in the final fights of this book, you see Ambrose using the ghost of all the deceased fables, obviously, with the promise of them retaining their bodies so they could help fight. So one other thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that Fabletown, they try to use this opportunity to tell of Haven, like, hey, you're our base of operations. Use you as a starting point, right? We can end and stage an invasion for the upcoming fall. Sorry about that. Internet glitched out. But about that, it's a the name sort of says it all, right? So I really enjoyed that. I really liked Ambrose and everybody at Haven stayed true to their conviction of peace and, resolving things and sort of in a peaceful manner. So, Fable Fridays, obviously, the majority of this book is concentrated on the character Flycatcher, and goes from a once noble soul to being a shell of his former self, is what I want to say, and dealing with depression and the opportunities, realizing the opportunities at hand, the second chance, the second opportunity to redeem himself and move on, because that is what his family would have wanted. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a thing that can inspire many people to do good. And I have to give it to story with the character Flycatcher, who easily just shut up on my list of favorite comic book characters. I love this book so much, and it will always hold a special place in my heart after reading it now, because of that, because it reminds me that there is good out there, and regardless of the terrible situations that we might find ourselves in, we have to stay true to our convictions and face our fears. And even though it sucks, we gotta plow right through it, and because there is a light at the end of the day. And if we believe and have faith and keep moving forward, good things will happen. It takes some time. We may have a cloudy vision as to what the purpose is, but if we stick through it, I think we'll be okay. And yeah, this book really reminded me of that. So that's really awesome. The art stayed consistent all the way through. I think it's some of the best looking pages in the series as of this video. And the writing's solid. I really enjoyed getting inside Flycatcher's thought process and leading all these wonderful characters to sort of a haven, promised land. So that was really great. So I'm very much looking forward to Volume 9, where we're going to continue the story, and obviously, and I can't wait to read that. So yeah, that's about it for this Fable Fridays. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for commenting, subscribing, and part of a week. I do apologize for the little glitchiness there. Not everybody, I guess, and I'm a little tongue-tied. All right. Thank you everybody once again. If you want to follow me on social media and all that stuff, links in the description below. I'll be doing chapter 9 or book 9 next week as of this video, so look forward to that. I'm really excited to talk about more Fables. And then in November, we're going to speed things in so that in December we can have our grand finale. Yeah, that's about it. That's about it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got to stay safe out there, and I will catch all of you on that maybe actually next Friday. So yeah, keep watching. Hit the bell icon so you know when new videos pop up. I do content like this where I go over anime, manga, and comics. So yeah. Thank you everybody